The morning sun poured through the windows of a small roadside diner, turning the silver coffee pots into little mirrors of light. The place smelled of fresh pancakes, roasted coffee, and butter sizzling on the grill. It was one of those simple places where people stopped on their way to work, or travelers came to rest their tired legs. Behind the counter, a young woman moved quickly, balancing plates, wiping tables, and offering smiles that looked warmer than the coffee she served. Her name was Lily. She had been working there for 3 years now. Every day started the same: early morning rush, long hours on her feet, and a few regular customers who always left kind words but small tips. She didn't complain. She had learned long ago that life didn't slow down just because you were tired. There were bills to pay and a sick mother at home who needed medicine. So Lily kept moving, one table at a time. That afternoon seemed like any other. The diner was half full, and the hum of soft conversation filled the room. A few kids were eating fries at one table, a truck driver sat reading a newspaper at another, and a small family came through the door, a man in his late 40s and a teenage boy in a wheelchair. The boy's smile was shy, his hands resting still on his lap. The man looked calm but distant, dressed neatly in a dark jacket that spoke of quiet wealth. They chose a corner table by the window. Lily walked over with her notepad. "Good afternoon. What can I get for you today?" she asked, her tone friendly and warm. The man smiled politely and gave the order: a sandwich and coffee for himself, mashed potatoes and soup for his son. The boy looked up at her with curious eyes, his words soft but cheerful when he thanked her. As she left to bring their order, she noticed how the father gently adjusted the boy's blanket, his movements careful but tired. Something about that small gesture touched her. She didn't know their story, but she could feel there was one. When Lily came back with their food, she set the plates carefully in front of them. The boy tried to lift the spoon but struggled. His hand trembled and the soup nearly spilled. The father reached out to help, but before he could, Lily gently stepped in. "Would you like me to help you with that?" she asked softly, not wanting to embarrass him. The boy nodded shyly. Without hesitation, Lily pulled a chair beside him and began to feed him little by little, making sure the soup wasn't too hot. She talked to him while she did it, not about his condition, not about pity, just small things that made him smile. She asked if he liked the soup, told him funny stories about the silly cook who always burned the first pancake of the day, and laughed when he made small jokes back. The father watched quietly, saying nothing. There was something in his eyes that looked like surprise mixed with sadness. People often looked away from his son in public. They didn't mean to be cruel, but their eyes carried pity, discomfort, or worse, avoidance. But this woman was different. She didn't hesitate. She treated his son like any other kid who just needed a hand. That simple kindness stirred something deep in his chest. After a while, the boy finished his meal and Lily placed a napkin in his hand so he could wipe his mouth himself. "There you go," she said, smiling. "You did great." The boy beamed at her, proud and happy. His father thanked her quietly, his voice a little rough. She nodded as if it was no big deal and went back to the counter. But for the father, it was a big deal. He sat there, his coffee growing cold, watching her move from table to table. There was no trace of performance in her actions, no sign she did it for praise or attention. When she smiled, it was real. When she helped others, it came from the heart. He had spent years in boardrooms and big offices surrounded by people who only smiled when they wanted something. Yet here, in this small diner, a tired waitress was showing him a kind of honesty he rarely saw anymore. As Lily refilled his coffee, he asked her, "You seem like you enjoy helping people. Have you always worked here?" She chuckled softly. "Pretty much. I wanted to study nursing once, but life had other plans. My mom got sick, so I had to start working full-time. Maybe someday I'll go back to school." She didn't say it with sadness, just quiet acceptance. The father nodded slowly, taking in her words. He told her his name was Daniel and that his son's name was Ethan. She smiled, saying Ethan was one of the brightest kids she'd met. The boy blushed at that, hiding his grin behind his hand. The three of them talked for a few minutes about small things: school, the weather, even the diner's famous apple pie. Lily spoke with a warmth that made the moment feel lighter. When they finished eating, Daniel asked for the check. Lily brought it over, and as she turned to leave, he stopped her. "Thank you," he said sincerely. "Not just for the food. For treating my son like anyone else." She smiled. He is like anyone else. He just needs a little help sometimes. That's all. Daniel nodded again, unable to find more words. He left a generous tip on the table, not so big that it would embarrass her, but more than what was usual. As he wheeled Ethan toward the door, his son waved. Lily waved back, calling out, "Come by again soon." Ethan nodded happily. After they left, Lily went about her work as usual, not realizing the small moment that had just taken place. To her, helping the boy was natural. She didn't think of it as special. She had always believed kindness shouldn't be something people had to plan. It should come naturally, like breathing. That evening, when her shift finally ended, she sat at the back of the diner, tired but peaceful. The sun was setting, painting the sky in soft orange and gold. She thought about the boy's smile, how his eyes had lit up when he laughed. That memory alone made her long day feel worthwhile. Across town, Daniel drove home in silence. Ethan had fallen asleep in the passenger seat, his head resting softly against the cushion. Daniel kept glancing at him through the rearview mirror, thinking about the waitress who had shown his son such care. He couldn't remember the last time he had seen Ethan laugh so freely with someone new. Maybe never. Daniel was a man who had everything money could buy, a big house, several businesses, and respect in the city. But that day in the diner reminded him of something money could never buy: genuine kindness. It had been so long since he had met someone who gave without expecting anything in return. He thought about Lily's story, working long hours, caring for her mother, putting her own dreams on hold. He wondered how many people like her went unnoticed every day, doing quiet good in a loud world that often looked the other way. As he drove through the fading light, an idea began to form in his mind, something that could change her life. But he said nothing, not yet. Some thoughts take time to grow. Back at home, Daniel helped Ethan get ready for bed. The boy looked up sleepily and said, "Dad, that waitress was nice. Can we go there again?" Daniel smiled, brushing his son's hair back gently. "Yes," he said softly. "We will." Later that night, after the house grew quiet, Daniel sat by his desk, staring out the window. The memory of Lily's kindness wouldn't leave him. He thought about how she had looked at his son, not with pity, not with fear, but with pure compassion. He realized how rare that was, how deeply it had touched him. He didn't know her well, but in that short moment, she had reminded him of what truly mattered. As the clock ticked softly in the background, he made up his mind. He couldn't change the world, but he could change one person's life, the person who had unknowingly brought light into his own. And while Lily slept peacefully in her small apartment, unaware of what was coming, fate had already started moving quietly in her favor. The day that had felt so ordinary was the day everything began to change. The next morning started like any other for Lily. She woke up before sunrise, made tea for her mother, and checked her medicine box. Her mother smiled weakly, thanking her for always taking care of everything. Lily kissed her forehead and said, "You do the same for me, Mom." Then she hurried out, wrapping a scarf around her neck as the cool breeze brushed her face. She had no idea that the man she served the day before was already thinking about her. Across town, Daniel sat in his office, surrounded by large windows and quiet hums of the city below. Papers covered his desk, and his assistant waited at the door, holding a stack of documents. But his thoughts were far from work. He kept seeing that small diner, that moment when Lily fed his son with such patience and care. It had been a long time since anything had moved him so deeply. He leaned back in his chair and stared at a photograph on his desk. It was of Ethan when he was younger, smiling wide before his illness had worsened. Daniel had spent so much money trying to find the best doctors, the best treatments, but he could never buy his son the kind of joy he saw in that diner. That joy had come from a stranger who expected nothing in return. He picked up his phone and made a call. "Find out who owns that diner just outside the highway," he said to his assistant. "And I need the names of the employees there, quietly." While Daniel began to make plans, Lily continued her day, unaware of it all. The diner was busier than usual, filled with chatter and laughter. The cook shouted orders, the coffee pot hissed, and Lily kept moving between tables, balancing trays with practiced ease. She didn't complain about the long hours. Every extra shift meant more savings for her mother's medicines. During her short break, she sat by the window with a small sandwich, looking out at the cars passing by. She thought again about the man and his son. There was something about them that stayed with her, Not sadness, but a kind of quiet strength. The boy's laughter had been contagious, and she smiled at the memory. By evening, Daniel and Ethan returned to the diner. When Lily saw them walk in, she smiled brightly. "Hey there. Back so soon?" she said cheerfully. Ethan nodded eagerly, his eyes lighting up when he saw her. "We promised we'd come again," Daniel replied with a smile. This time they sat at the same table. Lily took their order, and as she walked away, Daniel noticed how the other customers greeted her warmly. She seemed to be the kind of person everyone liked, the one who always remembered your favorite drink or asked about your day. When the food came, Ethan tried again to feed himself. Lily stood close by, ready to help if needed, but this time she just guided him with small words of encouragement. "You got it, just take your time," she said softly. And he did. Slowly but surely, Ethan managed a few bites on his own. The pride in his eyes made Daniel's throat tighten. After they finished eating, Lily brought them a slice of apple pie. "On the house," she said. "It's the least I can do for my favorite customers." Ethan clapped his hands happily, and Daniel laughed. For the first time in years, he felt relaxed, like he wasn't a businessman or a single father carrying the weight of the world, but just a dad sharing dessert with his son. As they were about to leave, Daniel looked at her and asked, "You really love this job, don't you?" She thought for a moment and said, "It's not perfect, but it's honest. And sometimes, little moments here remind me that kindness still matters. That's enough for me." Her words struck him deeply. When they drove home, Daniel couldn't stop thinking about her again. Ethan talked excitedly about the pie, about how nice Lily was, and about how he wanted to visit her every week. Daniel smiled but stayed quiet. Something inside him told him this wasn't just a passing encounter. This was the start of something meaningful. The next day, Daniel's assistant returned with the information. The diner belonged to a small family, and Lily had been working there for years. She was known for her kindness and her strong work ethic. The assistant also mentioned that she often turned down help, insisting she didn't need charity. Daniel nodded slowly. That only made him respect her more. He spent the next few days thinking about how to help her without making her feel uncomfortable. He didn't want her to think it was pity. He wanted it to feel like a door opening, a chance she had earned through her own goodness. Meanwhile, Lily's week continued as usual. She woke up early, took care of her mom, went to work, and smiled through her tiredness. Sometimes, when she had a quiet moment, she thought about the boy's laughter and the father's kind eyes. It made her heart feel warm. She hoped they were doing well. A few days later, as the evening sun painted the sky orange, Daniel returned alone. Lily recognized him right away and greeted him with a friendly smile. "Where's my little buddy?" she asked. Daniel chuckled softly. "He had a doctor's appointment today, but he made me promise to bring him next time." Lily nodded. "Tell him I said hi and that the apple pie is waiting for him." They shared a brief laugh before Daniel grew a little serious. He looked at her carefully and said, "You remind me of someone I used to know. Someone who believed that being kind was enough to make the world better." She smiled a little shyly. "Maybe it is enough," she said.
"Even if it doesn't fix everything, it makes someone's day a little easier." That night, Daniel went home with a decision.
He opened his laptop, typed a few emails, and made a few phone calls. There was one particular hospital in the city known for offering scholarships for nursing students. He knew the director personally. If there was a way to make Lily's dream come true, he would find it. Over the next week, things started to move quietly behind the scenes. Paperwork was handled, approvals were made, and arrangements were set. Daniel insisted on keeping his name out of it. He wanted Lily to receive the help as a gift from fate, not from him. 1 week later, Lily came home to find an envelope slipped under her apartment door. There was no return address, only her name written neatly on the front. Inside was a letter printed on official hospital stationery. Her hands trembled slightly as she read the words. She had been selected for a full scholarship to the city's nursing program, all expenses paid. Her heart raced. She read it twice, then a third time, afraid it was a mistake. But at the bottom of the letter there was a small handwritten note. "For those who care for others, may your dreams finally be cared for too." And at the end, just one letter. Lily sank into a chair, her eyes welling up with tears. She didn't understand who had done this or why, but it felt like a miracle. She ran to her mother's room, waving the letter excitedly. Her mother smiled through tears, holding her daughter's hands. "You see? she said softly. Good hearts always find their reward, even if it takes time. That night, Lily lay in bed staring at the ceiling, her heart full of gratitude. She didn't know who to thank, so she whispered a quiet thank you to the universe. Somewhere out there, someone had seen her kindness and believed in her dreams. At the same time, Daniel sat by his window at home, watching the city lights. Ethan was asleep in his room, peaceful and content. Daniel smiled faintly, thinking of the letter he had arranged to be sent that morning. He hadn't signed his name because he didn't want recognition. It was enough to know that he had done the right thing. He thought about Lily's smile, the way she had treated his son with respect and warmth, and how her kindness had reminded him of the person he used to be before life had hardened him. That night, he felt something he hadn't felt in a long time: peace. Back at the diner, things looked the same the next morning, but Lily was different. She moved lighter, her smile brighter. Every cup of coffee she served felt like a step toward her new future. She didn't know who had opened this door for her, but she promised herself she would walk through it with gratitude and purpose. And somewhere, just a few miles away, Daniel watched the sunrise, knowing that a single act of kindness had come full circle. He had gone to that diner expecting only a meal, but he had found something far greater, a reminder that the smallest kindness could change more than one life at a time. The next few weeks passed like a dream for Lily. Every morning she woke up feeling something she hadn't felt in a long time: hope. The letter about the scholarship had changed everything. She still worked at the diner, but now every plate she served, every cup of coffee she poured, carried a quiet joy. She was finally going to be what she had always wanted to be: a nurse. Someone who could help others not just with a smile, but with real care. Her mother noticed the difference too. She watched Lily moving around the house with new energy, humming softly as she packed her things for work. "You look happier these days," her mother said one morning. Lily smiled. "I guess I am. It feels like things are finally turning around." Her mother nodded, her eyes full of love. "You've worked hard, sweetheart. You deserve it." Meanwhile, Daniel was quietly watching from a distance. He hadn't told anyone what he had done, not even his closest business partners. To him, this wasn't about charity or reputation, it was personal. Every time he thought about that day in the diner, he remembered the peace in his son's eyes and the warmth in Lily's voice. It had been a long time since he'd seen kindness so pure. One Saturday morning, Daniel took Ethan to the park. The air was crisp and children ran around flying kites. Ethan sat in his wheelchair, watching them with quiet interest. Daniel crouched beside him. "Do you remember the waitress from the diner?" he asked. Ethan nodded eagerly. "Of course. She was nice. Can we go see her again?" Daniel smiled. "Soon," he said. "She's doing something really important now." Ethan tilted his head. "What do you mean?" Daniel hesitated for a moment. "Let's just say she's going to school to help people. People like you." Ethan grinned. "That's cool. She'll be a great helper." Hearing those words from his son filled Daniel with pride. Maybe helping Lily had been his way of teaching Ethan something too. That goodness has a way of coming back. A few days later, Lily received another letter from the hospital. It included details about her admission date and the start of her training. She would begin in 3 weeks. She held the paper close to her chest and whispered a small thank you into the air. She didn't know who had done this for her, but she hoped she would someday find out. Her co-workers at the diner were thrilled for her. The cook joked, "Guess we'll need to find someone else who can smile at grumpy customers." Everyone laughed. Lily promised to visit whenever she could. Though she was excited about her future, part of her heart would always stay in that little diner where her new life had begun. That evening, Daniel and Ethan came back for dinner. When Lily saw them, she couldn't hide her smile. "Look who's here," she said, hurrying over. Ethan waved excitedly. She took their order and chatted with them as usual. Daniel noticed something different in her eyes, something brighter, more confident. "You look happy," he said kindly. "I am," Lily replied. "I got accepted into a nursing program. Full scholarship." "I still can't believe it." Daniel's heart swelled with pride, but he kept his secret. "That's amazing," he said sincerely. "You deserve it." "Thank you," she said. "It feels like a dream. I don't even know who to thank." The letter didn't say who recommended me. Daniel smiled faintly. "Maybe you don't need to know. Sometimes good things find their way to good people." She nodded thoughtfully, not realizing the truth hidden in his words. They talked for a while longer, sharing light conversation. When Ethan finished eating, Lily brought him a small cookie in the shape of a star. "For my favorite little fighter," she said. Ethan laughed, taking it proudly. As they were leaving, Daniel looked back one last time. He saw Lily wiping down a table, humming softly. There was a sense of calm around her, a quiet strength that came from believing in something again. He knew he had made the right choice. Weeks passed, and soon the day came for Lily to start her classes. She wore a simple white uniform and carried a small bag with her notebooks and pens. Her mother watched proudly from the doorway, tears shining in her eyes. "You're going to make a wonderful nurse," she whispered. Lily hugged her tightly. "I'll make you proud, Mom." When she stepped out into the morning light, she felt nervous but excited. Everything looked brighter, even the ordinary streets she had walked 1,000 times before. She took the bus to the hospital, her heart racing with a mix of fear and joy. Her first week was tough. There was so much to learn, medical terms, patient care, procedures, but Lily didn't give up. Every time she felt tired or overwhelmed, she thought about her mother's smile and about Ethan. The boy who had taught her that kindness mattered more than anything else. Back at home, Daniel and Ethan settled into their usual routine. But something had changed in them too. Daniel began to volunteer more of his time, donating to programs that supported children with disabilities. He didn't announce it publicly. He just did it quietly, as a way of honoring the small moment that had changed his heart. One evening, as they sat watching television, Ethan asked, "Dad, do you think people like that waitress know how special they are?" Daniel thought for a moment. "Maybe not, but sometimes it's enough that the world knows." Ethan smiled. "I hope she's happy." "She is," Daniel said softly. "I'm sure she is." Months went by and Lily flourished in her studies. She worked hard and soon became known for her gentle care and patience with patients. The instructors often praised her for her empathy. "You have the heart of a real nurse," one of them told her during training. Lily smiled, her eyes glistening. She thought of her mother, of the people who had believed in her, and of the stranger who had unknowingly inspired her journey. One afternoon, as she walked through the hospital corridors during her break, she saw a familiar figure in a wheelchair. Her heart skipped a beat. It was Ethan. He was with Daniel talking to a doctor near the reception area. For a moment, Lily froze in surprise, then her face broke into a wide smile. She hurried over. "Well, if it isn't my favorite customer," she said warmly. Ethan looked up, his face lighting up in recognition. "Lily!" he exclaimed. "You work here?" She laughed. "I do now. How have you been?" "Better," he said proudly. "Dad says I'm stronger now." Daniel turned to her, equally surprised but pleased. "You really did it," he said softly. "I did," she said, her voice gentle. "Thanks to a miracle I still don't understand." Daniel looked at her with quiet pride. "Maybe some miracles are meant to stay mysteries," she smiled at that. They talked for a while, catching up. Ethan told her about his therapy and the progress he had made. Lily listened with genuine happiness. Seeing them again felt like everything had come full circle. Before they left, Daniel shook her hand. "We're both proud of you," he said. "Thank you," she replied, her voice full of emotion. "You both gave me something to believe in." When they left, Lily stood there for a long time, smiling to herself. The world suddenly felt connected in a way she had never realized before. Every small act of kindness really did ripple outward, touching lives in ways she couldn't have imagined. Later that evening, Daniel and Ethan sat together at home. Ethan was quiet, staring out the window. "Dad," he said finally, "I think people like her make the world better just by being in it." Daniel nodded slowly. "You're right," he said. "And if we're lucky, we get to be part of their story." That night, Lily walked home beneath the streetlights, her bag slung over her shoulder, the sound of the city soft around her. She thought about everything that had happened, the chance encounter, the kindness she had given, and the kindness she had received in return. Life, she realized, had a way of giving back when you least expected it. She looked up at the stars and whispered, "Thank you," not knowing that somewhere across the city, Daniel was looking out at the same night sky, silently saying the same thing. Months had passed since Lily met Daniel and Ethan again at the hospital. Life had started to move in a new rhythm for her. Her days were long but meaningful, filled with patience, lessons, and quiet moments of gratitude. Every time she walked through the hospital halls, she felt a sense of purpose that she had never known before. The sound of beeping monitors and soft footsteps had become the heartbeat of her dream. Her instructors praised her dedication. They said she had something that couldn't be taught, a natural gentleness that made people feel safe. When she cared for patients, she didn't just follow instructions. She listened, smiled, and made them feel seen. The elderly patients adored her, children laughed around her, and even the nurses who had worked there for years admired her calm energy. But behind her steady smile, Lily often thought about the strange turn her life had taken. She still didn't know who had arranged the scholarship. Sometimes she would lie awake at night, wondering who had believed in her enough to make her dream possible. She had stopped trying to guess, but deep down, she hoped she could one day thank them. Meanwhile, Daniel's life had also changed. After seeing Lily again, he felt something awaken in him, a desire to do more good quietly. His company had grown over the years, but his heart had often been distant from the world. Now he began using his wealth to support causes that truly mattered. He started a foundation for children with disabilities, helping families who couldn't afford therapy or equipment. He didn't announce it with speeches or media. He just did it because it felt right. Ethan had grown stronger too. With regular therapy and new confidence, he began to believe he could do more on his own. His laughter returned to the house, filling the empty rooms with warmth. Whenever he talked about Lily, his eyes lit up. "She's the best nurse ever," he often said, even though she was still a student. One chilly morning, as Lily was preparing to leave for her hospital shift, she noticed an envelope slipped under her apartment door again. Her heart skipped a beat. She hadn't received one like this since the scholarship letter. The handwriting was the same, neat and elegant. Inside was a short note that read, "You are doing well. Keep going. The world needs hearts like yours." And again, just one initial. She held the note close to her chest, her eyes filling with tears. Whoever this person was, they believed in her more than she believed in herself. She tucked the letter safely inside her journal before leaving for work, her heart lighter than it had been in weeks. That day at the hospital was busy. A new patient had arrived, a little girl who had been in an accident and needed constant care. Lily was assigned to assist in her recovery. The girl's parents looked tired and scared, and Lily made it her mission to make their days easier. She read to the child, held her hand when she cried, and spoke to her as if she were her own sister. One evening, while Lily was helping the little girl with her meal, Daniel walked into the same ward with Ethan. They had come to donate some new medical equipment for the children's therapy room. When Ethan spotted Lily, his face broke into a huge grin. "Lily," he called out. She turned around, surprised and happy. "Ethan, what a nice surprise," she said, walking over. She bent down beside him.
"How have you been?"
"Better," he said proudly. "Dad's been helping lots of kids here too." Lily looked at Daniel and smiled. "That's wonderful. You both have such kind hearts." Daniel returned her smile. "We just wanted to give back. People have been kind to us too." Lily nodded softly. Kindness always finds its way back. They spent a few minutes talking, sharing stories about Ethan's progress and the hospital's work. Before they left, Daniel looked around the ward, his eyes resting on the children. He could see the quiet struggle of families, the fear in their eyes, and yet the hope that lingered in every small smile. It reminded him of the diner that day, how one act of kindness could spark so much light. As they said goodbye, Daniel told her, "You're doing something special here. You may not realize it, but you've changed more lives than you know." Lily laughed softly. "I don't know about that. I'm just doing what feels right." Daniel nodded. "Sometimes that's all it takes to make a difference." After they left, Lily went back to her patient, but her thoughts lingered on that conversation. She felt something familiar in Daniel's words, something almost personal. But she brushed it aside, focusing instead on her work. Days turned into weeks and winter began to fade. Lily continued her studies and eventually completed her first year with top marks. The hospital offered her a part-time job while she finished her training. It wasn't easy juggling work, study, and caring for her mother, but she managed. Every time she felt exhausted, she thought of all the people who believed in her, and it gave her strength. One evening, as the city lights glowed against the night sky, Daniel sat in his office staring at a picture of Ethan on his desk. His assistant knocked softly and entered. "Sir, the foundation has received letters from families thanking you for the new therapy rooms," she said. Daniel smiled faintly. "That's good to hear," he said. "But they don't need to know it was me. Just make sure they have what they need." After she left, he leaned back in his chair. He thought about Lily again, about how one small act of compassion had set so much in motion. Her kindness had inspired not only him, but now countless others through his foundation. He wondered if she would ever realize the reach of her impact. A few weeks later, the hospital arranged a special event to honor the donors who had supported the children's program. Lily was asked to help organize it. She spent days decorating the hall, arranging flowers, and preparing small thank you gifts for the guests. It felt surreal to be part of something so big. When the evening arrived, the hospital's large hall filled with families, staff, and guests. The atmosphere was warm and full of gratitude. Lily moved between tables, greeting people and making sure everything ran smoothly. She didn't expect to see Daniel there, but when he walked in with Ethan, her face lit up. Ethan waved excitedly. "Lily," she laughed. "I should have known you two would be here." Daniel smiled. "We couldn't miss it. This place means a lot to us." The ceremony began with short speeches from doctors and patients' families. They spoke about how the new facilities had changed lives, giving children hope and strength. Lily listened with tears in her eyes, realizing how much goodness could come from a single spark of kindness. When Daniel was called up to the stage to say a few words, he hesitated for a moment, then stepped forward. His voice was calm but full of emotion. "Sometimes in life we meet people who remind us of what really matters," he said, "not through grand gestures but through simple acts of compassion. They make us see the world differently, and sometimes, without even knowing it, they change our lives forever." Lily listened closely, her heart beating faster. Something about his words felt deeply personal. Daniel continued, "Kindness doesn't need an audience. The truest kind comes quietly, without asking for anything in return. It creates ripples that reach further than we ever imagine." When he finished, the room erupted in applause. Lily's eyes glistened with tears. She clapped along with everyone else, feeling moved in a way she couldn't explain. After the ceremony, as people mingled, Daniel approached her. "You did a great job tonight," he said warmly. "Thank you," she said. "And your speech, it was beautiful." He smiled gently. "It was inspired by someone I met a while ago." She looked at him curiously. "Someone from here?" He paused for a second, his eyes kind. "Someone from a small diner," he said softly. For a moment she froze. The words hit her like a quiet wave. Her eyes widened slightly as realization began to dawn. "You," she whispered. Daniel smiled, his voice steady but warm. "Yes, it was you, Lily." She stood there speechless, her hand trembling slightly. "You're the one who helped me?" He nodded. "You helped me first. You showed me what kindness looks like. I only returned a fraction of what you gave that day." Tears filled her eyes, but she smiled through them. "You changed my life," she said softly. He shook his head. "You changed mine." They stood there for a moment, surrounded by the gentle noise of laughter and music, two people connected by a single act of compassion that had grown into something far greater. As the night came to an end, Lily looked around the hall, at the families smiling, the children laughing, and the doctors talking with joy. She realized that kindness was a circle. It always found its way back. When she left that night, the stars shone brightly above her. She looked up, whispered another thank you, and smiled, knowing that the world was full of quiet miracles waiting to be made. After the hospital event, Lily's life began to bloom in ways she had never imagined. The truth about Daniel's help had left her speechless, but also filled her heart with deep gratitude. She thought about that moment often, the look in his eyes when he told her she had changed his life. It was something she carried quietly, like a gentle light inside her. She didn't tell anyone what she had learned that night. She didn't feel the need to. Some moments were too pure to be shared loudly. The days at the hospital continued, busy yet fulfilling. Lily had become one of the most trusted nurses in her department. Patients requested her by name, and even the doctors relied on her calm energy during stressful situations. She treated every patient like family, no matter their background or condition. To her, every heartbeat was a story worth caring for. Her mother's health had also improved slightly. She could now walk short distances with help, and every evening they would sit by the window together talking about Lily's day. Her mother always smiled when Lily spoke about the children at the hospital. "You were meant to heal, my dear," she would say softly, "even when life tried to break you." Lily often thought about Daniel and Ethan, though they hadn't met again after that night. She knew they were busy with their foundation work, and she followed the updates quietly. News articles mentioned anonymous donations to children's hospitals and schools for kids with special needs. She always smiled, knowing exactly who was behind it. One cold morning, as Lily walked to the hospital, snowflakes fell gently from the sky. The city looked peaceful, covered in white. She wrapped her scarf tighter around her neck and stopped for a moment to watch a group of children laughing as they tried to catch snowflakes on their tongues. Their laughter reminded her of Ethan. A soft smile spread across her face before she continued walking. That day, the hospital was busier than usual. There was an outbreak of flu and the pediatric ward was full. Lily moved tirelessly from one bed to another, checking temperatures, giving medicine, and comforting worried parents. By the time her shift ended, it was already dark outside. She sat down in the empty staff lounge, exhausted but content. As she sipped her tea, the hospital director walked in with a warm smile. "Lily," he said, "you've been doing outstanding work. There's something I'd like to discuss with you." She looked up, surprised. "Of course, sir." He sat across from her. "The foundation that helped us build the new Children's Therapy Center wants to start a special community program for families who can't afford hospital care. They've asked us to recommend someone who could lead it." He paused for a moment before continuing. "We thought of you." Lily's eyes widened. "Me, but I'm still new," he smiled. "Experience matters, yes, but heart matters more. And you have plenty of that." For a moment, she didn't know what to say. I'd be honored," she finally whispered. Over the next few weeks, Lily threw herself into preparing for the new program. It was designed to help children with disabilities receive free home care and therapy. She organized small medical teams, trained volunteers, and set up partnerships with local clinics. It was hard work, but it gave her a deep sense of fulfillment. Daniel learned about the program through his foundation reports. When he saw Lily's name leading the project, he felt an indescribable sense of pride. He hadn't told her that the foundation behind the funding was his. He wanted her to succeed on her own merit, and she was doing exactly that. Ethan, who now attended school part-time, also heard the news. "Dad," he said excitedly one evening, "Lily's helping more kids like me." Daniel smiled warmly. "Yes, she is, son. She always had a gift for that." Ethan thought for a moment. "Can we help her again? Maybe visit?" Daniel hesitated but then nodded. "Yes, I think it's time." A few days later, Lily was in the middle of a community workshop when she heard familiar voices behind her. She turned and saw Daniel and Ethan standing by the doorway, smiling. Ethan rolled forward in his chair, his face glowing. "Lily!" he shouted with joy. She hurried over, beaming. "Ethan, Daniel." "What a surprise." "We wanted to see what you've been building," Daniel said. "And it looks like you've built something wonderful." Lily laughed softly. "It's still growing, but I couldn't have done it without your foundation's help." Daniel met her eyes and smiled gently. "You could have. You just needed a chance." They spent the rest of the day visiting families, watching children play and learn through therapy. Lily introduced Daniel and Ethan to her volunteers, and together they shared stories of hope and perseverance. By the end of the day, Daniel felt more certain than ever that his decision to help her had been the right one. She was changing lives in ways money alone never could. Later that evening, as the sky turned orange with sunset, they stood outside the center. The air was crisp, and the city lights began to shimmer in the distance. "You've done something beautiful here," Daniel said quietly. Lily looked out at the children playing in the courtyard. "I just wanted to give back what was given to me. Kindness shouldn't stop with one person." Daniel nodded. "You're right. And I think that's what makes the world better. A circle of kindness that keeps going." Ethan grinned. "Like how you helped Dad and Dad helped you and now you're helping everyone else?" They all laughed softly. "Exactly," Lily said. After they left, Lily stood outside the center for a while, watching the last bit of sunlight fade. She thought about how far she had come, from a tired waitress struggling to make ends meet, to a nurse leading a program that was touching so many lives. It almost felt unreal. But more than anything, she felt thankful for the people who had crossed her path, for the moments that had changed her direction, and for the kindness that had found her when she least expected it. Weeks passed and the program flourished. Families began sending thank you letters, and some even brought homemade food for the volunteers. The hospital director praised Lily's leadership, saying she had set a new example for compassion and dedication. Yet despite all the recognition, Lily remained humble. She never forgot where she came from or the people who had helped her get there. One evening, after finishing her rounds, Lily found another envelope waiting for her on her desk. Her heart skipped a beat as she recognized the familiar handwriting. She opened it slowly and read, "You've turned your compassion into something far greater than I ever imagined. Watching you grow has been a gift. The world is a kinder place because of you. Keep shining." Again it was signed simply. Tears welled in her eyes as she folded the letter carefully. She didn't need to ask who it was from. She whispered softly, "Thank you, Daniel," and smiled. That night, as she walked home through the quiet streets, she noticed a group of young volunteers handing out blankets to homeless families. She stopped for a moment watching them. One of the volunteers looked up and waved. "Would you like to join us, miss?" he asked. Lily smiled warmly. "I'd love to." She spent the next hour helping them, her hands cold but her heart warm. Every small act of kindness reminded her of where it had all begun. A small diner, a disabled boy, and a father who had watched silently as a stranger helped his son with love and care. Later, as she finally reached home, her mother was waiting by the door. "You're late, dear," she said gently. Lily laughed. "I stopped to help some people on the way." Her mother smiled knowingly. "Of course you did." They sat together in the cozy living room, the smell of tea filling the air. Lily looked around their little home, once filled with worry but now filled with peace. She realized that wealth wasn't about money. It was about the richness of giving, the joy of helping, and the comfort of knowing you've made someone's life a little brighter. As the night grew quiet, she picked up her journal and began to write. She didn't write about herself or her success. She wrote about kindness, the invisible thread that connected hearts, strangers, and moments. She wrote about how one small act could start a chain that never truly ended. Outside, snow began to fall again, gently covering the streets. Lily looked out the window and whispered, "Thank you, one more time, to the past, to the people who believed in her, and to the journey that had brought her here." In another part of the city, Daniel was sitting in his study, reading through letters from families helped by the program. Ethan sat beside him, coloring a picture of a nurse helping children. At the top, he had written in big, uneven letters, "Thank you, Lily." Daniel smiled softly, glancing at the drawing. "She really changed everything, didn't she?" he said quietly. Ethan nodded. "Yeah, she did." And as they sat there together, a deep sense of peace filled the room, the kind that comes when kindness finds its way back home.